Namaskar. Asato ma satgamaya tamso ma jyotirgamaya mrityo ma amrito gamaya. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. This is a beautiful invocation to start a talk about Yoga Sutra. Yoga Sutra is all about moving from untruth to truth, from darkness to light, and from immortal to eternal. Yoga Sutra, classical text, it lays out the way for us to know the truth. It is relatively short, only about 196 verses in total, in 4 chapters. Yoga is now becoming quite popular. There's even an International Yoga Day, and the common perception and image of yoga is that of physical exercises or asanas. However, yoga is a much deeper philosophy, and physical exercise is one of the 8 steps listed in yoga. The ultimate goal of yoga is to go beyond the distortions of our mind. Chit Vritti Nirodh, that is the first verse in Yoga Sutra, which says the objective is to stop the distortions of our mind and realize the truth. The truth is that we are all one, that the universal consciousness is the same as the life force within each one of us, and it is the common thing that connects all of us. But this knowledge is very difficult to get. And like any body of knowledge, it is best to start with core principles before getting into the advanced concepts. So the first chapter of Yoga Sutra lays out a framework on how to get true knowledge and how to recognize untrue or incorrect knowledge. It has 51 verses, and it starts out by defining what is true knowledge. There are 3 ways of getting true knowledge. The first is direct perception. Using one of our 5 sense organs, we can observe reality about any object directly. Every time we see, hear, touch, smell, or taste something, we know of the object. The second way is to infer. This can also be called the indirect perception. For example, we cannot observe gravity. However, the effects of gravity are everywhere to see. We can also see the pictures of bouncing astronauts in the space. So we know that the effect of gravity near the Earth is much more than when you're in space. The third way of getting knowledge is through competent. This is the knowledge because someone else told us. All our life, we learn new things from teachers and from experts. There are so many subjects on which we do not observe directly or even can infer what is going on. For all such objects, we rely on competent. It is important that the expert providing the testimony is. Let us say that you are walking down a street and a street quack approaches you with a magical white powder and tells you of all the unimaginable benefits that little white powder is going to give. You cannot rely on that testimony because that's not a competent. Now let us discuss how do we get incorrect or untrue knowledge might be one of the four. The first is when we are not getting any perception or any inputs. We are effectively sleeping. We are ignoring reality. The second way in which we get incorrect knowledge is when we perceive the input that we are getting. This is called the wrong perception. There's obviously the famous example of confusing a rope for a snake. The third is when we imagine something which is not based in reality. This is trickier to fix. Sometimes we have no direct observation, inference, or even competent testimony, but we can imagine really bad situations. A recent case is the assumption of weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. Turns out there was no direct evidence. We should not have inferred that they have it, and the people who were telling us that there may be weapons of mass destruction may not have been as competent as we thought they were. So our imagination can make up horrible situations, and it can lead us to go down a path like it did in case of Iraq, where a lot of instability, violence, and due to that fantasy or imagination. Finally, the last source of untrue knowledge is our memory. This is the hardest one to understand and to correct. Memory is essential to gain. Memory that tells us when we recognize an object as mango. If we have never seen a mango before and don't remember what it looks like, there is no way for us to recognize mango. It is also necessary for us to infer things correctly or to evaluate the competence of somebody telling us about an object. So both inference and competence of an expert depend on memory. So what does it mean that memory can color or distort our knowledge? The actual verse says Anubhut Vishay Samprosha Smriti, which translates, don't let memory carry away the experience of the object. Sampromosha means don't let it carry away. And Anubhut Vishaya means experience of the object. When we let memory add or take away something from the direct experience of the object, then we are letting the store of memory to color the reality as it is right now. Let me tell you about the power of this particular distortion. There is a medical phenomenon called phantom limb syndrome. People who lose a limb, an arm or a leg, continue to feel pain and touch and sensation in the area where that limb would have been. This is the power of our memory. Our mind is making us believe that an arm or leg that's no longer there still exists. And the memory can go much deeper. Even things that we do not consciously remember form latent impressions and memories. Take an example of a simple hug. A person who has been abused as a child will continue to react with suspicion and fear to any physical touch all his life. To him, even a simple hug will evoke tremendous negative energy. On the other hand, a baby which was hugged affectionately by her mother would receive a hug as a tremendous source of comfort and security. This is the power of your latent memory. Memory can also be cultural or at the society level. Major events like partition of India, 9/11 in America, have created memory at the society's level, and for a whole generation, our memory and impression of certain groups of people, regions will be colored by our memory of these events. So how do we know the difference between true and untrue knowledge? And let's talk about the path to get there. There are only two keys to success: practice and detachment. Practice is obvious. The more we do of something, the better we become at it. Detachment is a little bit tricky to understand. Detachment means detachment from strong attractions and aversions. The more strongly we are attached or averse to something, the more it has the power to distort our ability to perceive things the way they are. So the journey is all about weakening our strengths of likes and dislikes. As we weaken our strength of likes and dislikes, the ability of these things to color our thoughts goes down. At the same time, we need to be discerning. We have to know what is right and what is wrong. We do not reduce our liking for aesthetics or beautiful things. We do not reduce our dislike for violence and hunger. It is simply that we need to reduce the hold these memories or emotions have on our ability to observe reality. Let's take a simple example. Let's say you're driving and it's a hot summer day, like in India in June, and you see a tree on the right side of the street, and you swerve your car totally to the right side to get some shade. As you move a little further, you see a tree on the left side, and you swerve your car completely to the left side to go under that tree. As you move from tree to tree, you would be swerving your whole car left to right, and it'll take you a lot longer to get to your destination. If you reduce your attachment to the shade a little bit, you could continue moving in the right direction without the need to move left to right, and you will get some shade as you pass under the trees, maybe less than what you would have gotten otherwise, but you'd get to your destination in a much more efficient way. This is what it means to reduce the hold of your likes and dislikes. The lesser the impact of our memories and latent impressions, the better off we are in terms of understanding the reality the way it is right now. So now that we have talked about the methods to know about false knowledge and true knowledge, it's apt to discuss what is the biggest false knowledge that we carry. Yoga Sutra says the sense of a separate ego or a separate self, which has gotten entangled with our mind, is the biggest false knowledge that we carry. This sense of identity, of ego, allows us or forces us to associate with the memories of this body, of this mind, and our life experiences. The question is, are we only the sum of our experiences, or are we something more? A person who has lost his or her memory, who is suffering from Alzheimer's, still has life force. They no longer have memories. They do not remember that they loved their spouse or their children. They do not remember that they did not like to eat broccoli. But they still have the consciousness and the life force which is similar to what we have in the rest of us. So there is something beyond the accumulation of memories and latent impression that we carry. And that is the common universal consciousness that is beyond our mind, our memories, and our accumulated impressions. That is the universal consciousness. And the method we have just talked about tells us how we can move on this path to realizing this true knowledge. First is competent testimony. So if we have faith in a classical text like Yoga Sutra, we could start with believing that this may be true. The second is inference. We can see that people who are less attached to particular outcomes or strong likes and dislikes are more efficient in their life. They are better at making decisions. They are not swayed by their emotions too much. And finally is the direct observation of the truth. When we quieten down our mind and we observe where the thoughts are emerging and where they are leading us, we realize that our true self is behind the mind and the games and tricks that mind plays on us. That is the true knowledge. And that is also the framework of making good decisions along the way. So we don't have to wait till we are fully enlightened. We can start making better decisions today if we reduce the impact of all our memories and its associations on our observation of the reality the way it is today. Namaskar.